So I will resume then. Okay. Hello back, everyone. Welcome to our today's session of Talking Migration, webinar series from ICMPD Turkey. Our current session, in this current session, we will focus on the impact of COVID on irregular migration and return in Turkey and beyond. Me and my colleague Rafi are present today, and we will provide among us, the two of us, a chat on mainly irregular migration and return, said. So I hope you will enjoy our talk. My name is Semra Özgür. I'm working as project manager in ICMPD Turkey office, and particularly in the area of irregular migration and return since 2016. I pass the floor to my colleague Rafi to introduce himself.
Thank you, Semra. I'm Rafi Refik. I'm working for ICMPD for the last 7.5 years, almost 8 years actually. And luckily 4 years of it was in Afghanistan to see the source countries and the source of migration problems or the source of migration flow. And for the last 3.5 years, I'm working here at ICMPD's regional office in Western Balkan and Turkey, on a project which is mainly dealing with irregular migration and return. And for the last 10 years, 11 years, I'm working in migration area and different organizations. So happy to present today, and we'll talk about the impact of COVID-19 on irregular migration and return in Turkey, in countries of origin, and as well as flows to Europe. So if we start first, as you know, Turkey, due to its geographical location, has been always a center of movement and mobility. So coming recently, since 2011 Syrian crisis, or before and after that, migrants coming from different countries such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, or Middle East, crossing Turkey and going to Europe. And this route has been widely used as a transit route, but lately Turkey has been also a destination country for many irregular migrants. And coming to the impact of COVID-19 on irregular migration, as you know, the majority of the irregular migrants are young adult males who are coming mostly from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, or other countries. So these people, migrants living in one place, in a crowded place, mostly 20, 30 people in one house, and working in different sectors, have been a victim of COVID-19, unfortunately. But due to their illegal status or irregular status and lack of documents and ID, they could not go to health sector, though Turkey provided health services, COVID-19 related health services to all migrants and refugees. But irregular migrants, due to fear of being deported or apprehended, could not report to health authorities, even they were sick or even they had COVID. So what they did is they just laid home and slept until it passed automatically. But since they're young, their immune system was much more stronger, but still this was one of the problems in the COVID-19. So I will come later to the implications and impact of COVID-19 on irregular migration. But in general, in the first session, I will be talking about mostly facts and figures. So here, mostly I will be comparing the data of irregular migration related data from 2019 to 2020. So as you can see, the apprehensions of irregular migration in 2020 rapidly fall from 454,000 to 20,000. This is like 75%, around 75% decrease from the previous year. And also you can see this is the lowest in the since 2015. So this is because of the restricted movements of migrants and fear. As you know, the COVID-19 in the region first hit Iran, and it was really fearful at that time, and then migrants stopped moving and the border controls improved, and due to this restricted movement, the number fell. Apart from the impact on migration movement, it also indeed impacted the authorities as well, or the service providers, social service providers, or they got also impacted, and they had to also add limited movements as well. But this shows a short time fall in our understanding that, of course, during COVID, there was a 75% decrease, but immediately or after COVID, this is expected to increase, which I will come back later. As you can see, in addition to, Turkish Coast Guard apprehended 20,000 people in oceans while crossing to Europe mostly. And there's also a 3 times decrease from when it's compared to 2019. As you can see, the data, it was 60,000 and it fell to 20,000. This 20,000 apprehension happened in 624 incidents. So each incident, when either the Turkish Coast Guard spotted an irregular movement, or they were called and contacted to rescue. So 20,000 irregular migrants are apprehended in 624 incidents, which also decreased. If you can see, in 2019, there were 1,700 incidents of irregular migration reported by Turkish Coast Guard. And you can also see there's also a huge fall in land forces apprehension. The land forces apprehension mostly happened at the entrance points, which is the border mostly with the Iran in the Turkish cities, Avri, Van, and also exit points, which is mostly the border with Greece and Bulgaria. So it also fell like almost more than 4 times in 2020 compared to 2019. And as you can see in these data, the absolute majority of apprehended irregular migrants are citizens of Afghanistan and Pakistan. In 2018, it was 56%, 2019, 60%, 2020, 52%. So for the last few years, Afghans and Pakistanis made the huge absolute majority part of irregular migrants. So why I'm talking about this, when I will be talking about the countries of origin, I will mostly talk about Afghanistan and Pakistan due to magnitude of irregular migrants coming from there. And this will be, this also in our projects and activities as ICMPD, we have a special focus and priority on those countries to improve Turkey's migration cooperation with Afghanistan, Pakistan, and other countries in the region. Afghans, the number of Afghan irregular migrants fell by 75%. It was 200,000 in 2019, and it became 50,000 in 2020. And the number of Pakistanis fell by 81%, which was only 2,000 in 2020, and it was around 70,000 in 2019. So this also shows that from these countries, the irregular migration fell rapidly due to impact of COVID-19. And these are the statistics for all the other countries, like let's say top countries. But as you can see, in all the years, the numbers of Afghan irregular migrants, Pakistanis, are big compared to other nationalities. Of course, we can see the Iraqis and Iranians or Georgians. These are a very smaller number compared to Afghans and Pakistanis. But indeed, these countries are all important and needs to be in a dialogue which will help the flow of irregular migrants and management of irregular migration. Coming back to Afghanistan, while we talk about irregular migrant situation in Turkey, indeed, we cannot avoid the situation in Pakistan and Afghanistan or any other country of origin. So to understand the situation of irregular migrants in Turkey, we have to understand the situation in the countries of origin. What's happening? What's the situation there? This is just for understanding the current irregular migrants or understanding the future irregular migrants coming to Turkey and address it in a proper manner. So in Afghanistan, what happened is the most important problem was unemployment. Yes, security has been always a problem in Afghanistan for almost 40 years now, but unemployment was one of the major problems. Unemployment caused rise in crime in Afghanistan. This is pickpocketing, gunpoint stealing. These kind of crimes increased in Afghanistan, and this is also due to unemployment. And also, we understood in this COVID-19 time, the health sector of Afghanistan was insufficient to provide services to its citizens. It lacked services, though it received assistance from World Health Organization or other international partners and donors, but still the capacity was insufficient to reach to all its citizens. And also in during the COVID-19, almost 1 million Afghans returned from Iran and Pakistan. These are undocumented Afghans living in Iran and Pakistan. So 865,000 Afghans returned. Majority of it, around 90% of it, is from Iran, and lesser is from Pakistan. This is also due to the COVID situation at the beginning of 2020 in Iran, and also due to sanctions and economic problems in Iran. These Afghans had to go to Afghanistan, but there will be a backlash when the situation starts to become normal. And considering the economic situation in Afghanistan, these Afghans will remigrate at some point and looking for a better life. In Pakistan, as you can see, Pakistani economy relies hugely on remittances as well. And remittances was one of the biggest problems in Pakistan, and unemployment indeed. And Pakistan had to evacuate a lot of its citizens from Gulf countries or in the countries they were working. And this also caused a huge economic problem in Pakistan. And also, considering the population of Pakistan, the health service of Pakistan could not reach to its citizens in everywhere. So their health system also got exhausted in this time. So these were the situation in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Of course, there are security issues, there are political issues, but those are happening all the time. And I will also come back to that later. One of the important elements of irregular migration, which triggers actually, is human smugglers or migrant smugglers. As you can see, there were almost 50% fall in arresting human smugglers. In 2019, around 9,000 human smugglers in Turkey were arrested, and in 2020 this fell to 4,000. This is very important to understand that the human smuggling mechanism works very connected, coming all the way from Afghanistan. The migrant can pay the money in Afghanistan, and the smuggler hands them over to the smuggler in Iran, and then smuggler hands them over in Turkey. So they're all connected. These decrease is also very important in curbing irregular migration and fighting irregular migration as well. So now we talked about Turkey and we talked about countries of origin, mainly Pakistan and Afghanistan. Let's talk a bit about the crossings to Europe. Frontex reported a 13% decrease in detections in EU's external border, which was 124,000 in 2020, which is also the least in the last 5 years. Also, in the Eastern Mediterranean route, which is Turkey's border with Greece, Cyprus, in this area, Frontex also reported entrance or arrival to Europe, which fell to almost 20,000, and there's a 76% decrease when it's compared to 2019. And sea arrivals, which is to Greek islands and Greece, it also dropped rapidly from 74,000 in 2019 to 15,000 in 2020. There was a 79% decrease in this amount. As you can see, last year, the sea arrivals decreased 6 times compared to 2019, and the land arrivals also decreased almost 3 times compared to 2019. And here I will hand over the floor to my colleague to talk about the facts and figures on return issues.
Thank you, Rafi. Thank you. Yes, from my part, I will now focus a bit on the return and the facts and the recent trends. I would like to start saying that the facilitation of the dignified return of irregular migrants in Turkey remains an important segment of migration management in Turkey. However, if you look at the actual numbers of apprehended irregular migrants, the current return rates, both including the forced and the voluntary returns, remain very minimal. If we look at the figures, in 2018, Turkey returned in total 56,459, which represented only like 20% of the apprehended irregular migrants. For the next year, the return operations success rate increased actually by 82% to 103,093 returnees. However, despite the success, it's still, the rate remains limited, and it's only like 22.5% of the total number of apprehended migrants. Of course, this is due to the significant increase of the irregular migration population in 2019. Return rates are made public, are rates that are made publicly available by the Migration Authority in Turkey. However, for 2020, we cannot say that we have official numbers, but it is estimated that the returns are above 15,000 in total. If you look at the main nationalities of return, my colleague Rafi already indicated that Afghans and Pakistanis are the majority. For 2019, out of the 103,093 returnees, approximately 83,000 were Afghans. And the remaining ones are nationals from the other main source countries, to beginning with Pakistan. If we look at the Migration Authority in Turkey, in charge of the return operations, the Director General of Migration Management under the Ministry of Interior, the institution has been operating returns since its establishment, both forced returns through forced operations through charter flights. But for voluntary returns, it has been implementing them through the support of Iowa. I can also give the numbers for AVR. For example, 2016, there were 483 returnees. In the next year, 2017, there were 1,254. In 2018, 1,468. And in 2019, 1,864 returns. For the next year until, for the next three-yearly period until 2021, it was estimated that up to 3,500 persons would be included in the AVR operations. Looking at these return figures, AVR and forced returns, we can see that all in all, they remain low compared to the number of the apprehended irregular migrants in Turkey. And if we then look to the capacities of the return centers in Turkey, then we see, we can confirm that there is a continuously increasing load of migrant population, irregular migrant population. Currently, the capacities in the return centers are around 20,000, and there are like 24 return centers throughout Turkey. And only a certain percentage of the apprehended migrants are remaining within the centers. As a way of finding a temporary solution or a partial solution, Turkey made a few changes to its law on foreigners and international protection and introduced alternatives to detention. However, the situation will not be durable on the mid to long term. Okay, also, if we see the process of return, which is also not easy, returning a person takes normally from 1 month to 6 months, as it is often necessary to determine the identity of the person in question and obtain travel documents from the consulates. And this is also an issue that would need to be tackled to accelerate the process. And from the some interviews conducted by through the local national authority DGMM with the migrants, it can be said that like above 75% of those irregular migrants in Turkey, they want to reach through Turkey, Europe. And the remaining part, a segment of that part would stay in Turkey, and only on just a small portion of that would be willing to return to its country of origin or the country where he or she came from. I would like to here conclude saying that if you look on the one hand at the high number of irregular migrants in Turkey, and on the other hand, the low return rates, and which is also even more strengthened by the lower returns in the past year due to COVID. I mean, Turkey's absorption capacity is really being stretched to its limits. And before, I will continue in the next session on the further implications of the COVID in the area of return. And here I can pass back the word to Rafi.
Thank you, Semra. So here we will be talking about the impact and future implications of COVID-19 on irregular migration. Here also we wanted to look from two perspectives or two areas. One, what's happening in Turkey, and the second, what's happening in countries of origin. In Turkey, as you saw in the data, there was a 75% decrease in the number of apprehended irregular migrants. But what I see is this is for a short time. This is during the COVID when there are restricted movements. There are much more stricter controls in the borders. So for the time being, yes, there's a decrease, but in the future, this is expected to increase as a backlash, as a due to worsening economy in the countries of origin or security. The second thing is in Turkey, the unemployment among irregular migrants rose a lot. In an assessment done around May in 2020, 53% of irregular migrants reported that they had difficulty accessing hygiene, and 63% reported that they had difficulty in accessing food, but also 88% of them reported that they lost their jobs. So the unemployment among irregular migrants was high during COVID. So this also creates a problem, as most of the irregular migrants are working illegally, and they are the first one to lose their jobs. So the unemployment among irregular migrants rose during COVID. And also, as a future implication, even if the irregular migrants currently in Turkey, vaccine fate is, or the vaccination is not unclear still for, it's not clear for the irregular migrants still. So even if all the citizens get vaccinated, what will happen to irregular migrants, this is still not clear. And let's say all the irregular migrants in Turkey got vaccinated, but what will happen to the newcomers, especially in countries of origin, Afghanistan and Pakistan, even they're vaccinated, it's very difficult to reach to all its citizens because of security, because of the capacity. So the newcomers will also have a health problem in the future for Turkey. They have to be vaccinated, or they have to, they will start coming, the newcomers, and it will be a problem that needs to be looked at. In countries of origin, as I said, unemployment rose a lot, the crimes rose, the remittances decreased. But also in countries such as Afghanistan, especially there was a peace agreement between US and Taliban signed in February, at the end of February 2020, last year. So that gave the Afghans a hope for future, and that also had impact in the movement. But since then, the Afghan officials and the Taliban representatives have been continuously meeting in Doha, and the result of that also will have impact on the future irregular migrant movements towards Turkey and then towards Europe. Regarding the vaccination, Afghanistan doesn't have a plan yet, or there are no talks of even getting vaccines, but Pakistan will get its first vaccine at the end of January. It's around 1.5 million doses, and start vaccinating, but that will not be enough. Thanks a lot for the impacts and implications. I'm happy to answer if you have questions now. I pass it back to Semra to talk about impact and implications on return.
Thank you, Rafi. As you also may know, I mean, due to COVID, of course, Turkey, as other countries, has temporarily halted the return of irregular migrants. I mean, even if Turkey flattens the curve with the COVID pandemic, the return countries' insufficient health service capacity to fight the pandemic, including the capacity also to get sufficient vaccines, coupled with the increasing economic difficulties in these countries, may further delay return operations in the future. While source countries may be reluctant to accept the return of their citizens due to those adverse economic conditions, in parallel with the growing unemployment in their countries, the migrants' willingness and readiness to return may also diminish. Hence, return, which is also in itself a complex process, including different factors, may become even more challenging for Turkey as a result of the ongoing pandemic. In this slide, the lack of return operations will generate a growing irregular migrant population in Turkey. And next to the pandemic-related economic downturn also occurring in Turkey, this may lead to secondary movements and the escalation of attempts for irregular exits, either via sea or land routes in the future. And in case of secondary movements, these irregular exits from Turkey will not only intensify the irregular migration flow in the whole region, but also cause a greater influx towards the EU, and bringing along health risks for the destination countries as well. In addition to returns, of course, the ongoing migration cooperation and dialogues between Turkey and source countries have also been halted mostly, and which impairs the dialogues between the both sides also when it comes to return issues. And overall, I can say that, I mean, the lack of an effective, efficient return procedure will exhaust Turkey's migration management system and the fact of managing a growing irregular migration population. This will become more costly in terms of human resources, but firstly, of course, budget-wise. And this is my part when it comes to the impact and the implications of COVID on the returns. And before continuing with my last session, I pass now back the floor to Rafi.
Thank you, Semra. So the last part, we will talk about recommendations, or how can we make migration better after COVID or from now on. So first thing and foremost important thing is international or regional cooperation. both in the management of irregular migration as well as COVID-19 related strategies. So these need to be aligned and discussed to mutually address this problem and get over it. That's the first thing. And the second will be understanding and following the developments in countries of origin, especially in case of Afghanistan, the peace negotiations with the Taliban. So if the peace negotiations fail, there will be a huge flow back to Turkey and back to Europe. So this is very important. Indeed, all the counterparts, including Turkey and Europe, they are supporting this process, and they're willing to this process succeed, and Afghans finally find a peace. So, but this has been going for a year now, and they just agreed on the agenda. This is one of the most important things to follow. And the second thing, of course, the economic situation or the situation on the ground, both in Pakistan and Afghanistan, Bangladesh, they are also facing economic problems. These need to be followed, or other policy changes or political changes which may affect migration flows to Turkey and to Europe. These needs to be followed closely, and measures, policies need to be drafted accordingly. So the third recommendation will be supporting countries of origin with getting vaccines and also reaching to a broader population in those countries. This will be very important. So both donor countries, partners can support countries such as Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Iraq, or other countries of origin with the vaccines, so they get their citizens vaccinated. And as Semra also talked about, the improving or focusing on alternatives to administrative detention will be also important, instead of keeping all the migrants in the return center. It will be good to work on these alternatives and follow through those means. One of the most important recommendation will be setting up a migration risk analysis mechanism in Turkey. This is very important. It kind of combines few points from here. So this is also like analyzing, analyzing, and reading what's going on in the countries of origin or countries which are the source countries for migrants, and understand that based on that, develop short-term and long-term policies, measures to control this. And the other recommendation will be, in light of COVID implications, development of a proactive policy. So lessons learned from these COVID times need to be taken note, and also the policies reviewed, and much more proactive policies developed rather than reactive measures or reactive activities. This will help a lot. And also, it already started, but digitization will be very important. It needs to be focused on to reduce human contact, and also save time, save resources. This will be very important. But while digitizing, we have to consider the capacity, literacy rate, or the language of the migrants as well. So this is also very important. And outreach mechanism, this is very important. During COVID and post-COVID, this will be very required. During COVID, we also saw that most of the migrants are seeking information from each other. I used to follow the social media posts, different groups. They were exchanging information with each other, because their literacy rate, also their language barriers, it made them easier to contact each other. So this was a difficult thing for them. This will be indeed important, both in Turkey and also in the countries of origin. Also, we also need to focus outreach and public awareness in the source countries to address its source causes. This is an important element of migration management, I think that the migrants are aware at the beginning on the risks of irregular migration. Let's say they reach Turkey, then they need to be made aware of the rules and procedures here, so they are not blank. So this is all from my side, and I hand over the floor to my colleague Semra again.
Thank you. In my last session, I will focus and talk a bit on the policy recommendations from our side in the area of return. If we see the high number of irregular migrants in Turkey that are apprehended in the last years, firstly, to deal with such high numbers, it is important that Turkey establishes a national AVR system, which is also a priority for the DGMM, the Migration Agency, and the layer on the basis of this has been already, laid a long time ago, a couple of 4 years ago. So Turkey wanted to establish an AVR system that is complementary to the AVR study conducted by or through IOM. It's a national system with national ownership and meaning a system that is fully implemented by the national authorities in Turkey. If we check the national authorities, I mean, in Turkey, there has been a great way has been laid and development occurred as the DGMM and the national stakeholders, which are the Turkish Red Crescent, the Turkish Cooperation and the Development Agency, as well as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, have reached an agreement to establish such national system already in 2019, because actually in June, they signed a letter of intent. This step has been followed by the signing of a cooperation protocol, which occurred last September. And to date, we can say that Turkey disposes of a national established AVR system, but a system that needs further development, of course. As the first exercise in this regard, a pilot operational AVR project is about to kick off in a couple of weeks. And which pilot will be implemented with taking into account the COVID-19 related measures, including the taking of PCR tests from the returnees before departure, and their departure from Turkey to Afghanistan, as this pilot will focus on the Afghan irregular migrants in Turkey. And this all shows the determination of Turkey in this regard and the commitment for a functioning AVR national system. We can recommend that only through disposing of an AVR policy and strategy with both short and long-term goals and increasing the capacities of the institutions concerned, Turkey can be able to increase the returns to the countries of origin. Though for this to happen, Turkey would also need external support for financing such a mechanism, as relying only on national means will not lead to accomplishing the desired goals on the long term. Of course, I've been talking about AVR, but there's also the forced return aspect, and taking into account the close interlink between AVR, assisted returns, and forced return processes, it should be recognized that disposing of an effective functioning forced return mechanism is also essential to complete the migration management, and particularly the return management in Turkey. To this end, it is needed to provide further assistance to Turkey for developing the capacities and for conducting the forced return operations. This requires developing the operational framework in Turkey, but also establishing a national forced return monitoring mechanism which is already existing in most of the EU countries. Due to COVID, not only the number of returns have been halted, as we spoke earlier, but also the dialogues with source countries. And for 2021 and onwards, we would recommend that these dialogues are resumed. because despite the continuous efforts to prevent the illegal entry into Turkey and also the exits from Turkey to Europe, as a transit country, Turkey, cannot deal with this only. So there is cooperation needed with and through only an effective and systematic cooperation on with those countries on the main migration routes will help to address the root causes of migration and also to curb the irregular migration. We know that Turkey has good and close relations with the main countries as Pakistan and Afghanistan, and particularly on return matters. There is a good ongoing relationship with Pakistan. And when it comes to Afghanistan, we can say that Afghanistan is more open to assisted returns than forced returns. While improving these dialogues, Turkey could also support those countries in other areas than only irregular migration and return in these periods, for example, in the health issues, and also to increasing the capacities of those countries and dealing with the pandemic in other particular areas. One area that comes to my mind is labor migration, for example, with Afghanistan. In addition to these countries, it would be opportune to also increase cooperation with other source countries and extend its cooperation framework on return matters with countries such as Bangladesh. This should also be tackled and extend such cooperation also to North African countries such as Algeria and Morocco. And linking, of course, with assisted return, reintegration is another area where we would recommend further development, as it's beneficial not only for Turkey, but also for those countries of origin to have developed reintegration programs implemented in those countries. Without doubt, I can say that Turkey has the advantage of having two strong operational partners in the area of reintegration. Those institutions are already active in the countries of origin. These are the Turkish Red Crescent and the Turkish Development Agency. And through those partners, it will be maybe much easier for Turkey to have effectively running integration programs in the main countries of origin. We can say that it's crucial that Turkey already this year effectively prepares stepping up the return operations, having in mind the post-COVID period through strengthening its return policies and capacities of the institutions. The sustainability of Turkey's return program and the ability to appeal this to both migrants and the return country authorities will on the longer term mean decreased irregular flows, not only to Turkey, but also towards Europe. So hence it is recommended that donor countries provide financial support to Turkey for building its return capacities. So supporting Turkey for effectively functioning return mechanisms will provide more beneficial on the long term for the overall migration management in the region. Here I can say that we are coming closely to the end of our session as we spoke of the facts, figures, and the implications of COVID, as well as our policy recommendations on the area of irregular migration and return. I hope you enjoyed it. We did.
Semra, before we close, can we briefly answer the questions from?
Okay, I didn't see them. Mm-hmm.
So there are three questions. The last one on the Syrians, Syrians are mostly under temporary protection, so that's a very different topic. So I will answer that because it's a different topic, and later there will be other sessions on Syrians as well. Do Pakistan and Afghanistan cooperate with the Turkish authorities in return operations? On this, Yes, indeed. I mean, you cannot return a citizen without the approval of their diplomatic missions in the country. Indeed, they do cooperate. Even they receive the list and notifications of their citizens. And in case of Afghanistan, their representatives meet with the returnees and ask them if they're willing to return to Afghanistan, and then give them a travel document. So this is pretty much the case with cooperation of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Indeed, on these cooperations, as ICMPD, through our Western Balkan and Turkey region, through our HQ and through our other regions, we had a lot of input. And it started many years ago. We invited delegations from these countries, and they met with the Turkish authorities. They discussed on a mechanism. So as we do, we first support them on a dialogue, then help them to set up a mechanism and agree, then follow up those decisions on bilateral and multilateral level. So this is indeed they're cooperating, and both the Turkey meets with them on migration issues at the political level and also at the technical level. And as ICMPD, we continuously support their cooperation. On the second question, I will let my colleague Semra to answer it. Semra, the question is which national or international organizations monitor returns to ensure voluntariness component?
Checking the question with national returns to ensure component. Rafi? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I can take it.
I mean, for the voluntariness, what I can say that before the national AVR system is set up, Turkey has been working through IOM for conducting the return operations. And for the national system, it is just the early phases of its establishment. And the monitoring, I can say, okay, this will be taken care of or followed by the national institutions. In this case, it would be Kızılay, the Turkish Red Crescent. Yes. Anything else from your side, Rafi? You can.
Voluntariness, as I mentioned, the countries, the diplomatic representative of the countries are involved in this, and they are involved when they go to their airport. In case of Pakistan, FIA, which is the Federal Investigation Agency. In case of Afghanistan, their border police, and the representatives of Ministry of Refugees and Repatriation. They interview them again and ask them whether they came voluntarily or not. So even before departure, they sign a letter that they're returning voluntarily. And in case of Afghanistan, this letter is given by the embassy. And in case of Pakistan, in most countries, it's given by their community welfare attaches, but now currently they don't have a representative in Turkey. It is handled by the consular section of the embassy. The countries are involved to ensure that their rights are not violated. But these are the current return. But the recent national AVR mechanism, which we started, this is the Turkish Red Crescent, which is an NGO, an independent NGO, they are involved. The Turkish Cooperation and Coordination Agency, they are involved. So they will go through two phases. First, they will be interviewed by the Turkish Red Crescent, and secondly, the DGMM, to assure that they're voluntary. And its name states that it's National Voluntary Return Mechanism. So it's indeed considered in those. So this is, I hope, gives you the answer. Thank you very much. And this is all. We exceeded our time limit, but it was good for us. I hope it was insightful and informative for you as well. Thank you very much, Semra.
Thank you as well. Hope you enjoyed it, and Hope to see you in the next session of our talking migration for next week and the other weeks after that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.